Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Marissa Kozlov. It's great to have you with us for today's eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and martech. Today, we'll learn practical tips on mapping the customer journey, allocating budgets strategically, and applying creative best practices across on-site, off-site, and CTV channels. So first, let's meet my guests from TripleLift. We have Taylor Stewart, Global Head of Retail Media Engagement, who's joining us today from Philadelphia. Taylor, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Marissa.
Very happy you're here. And also happy to have Evon Hung, Product Research Manager, joining us today from the West Coast in LA. Hi, Evon.
Hi, Marissa.
Well, really happy you're both here from both coasts. So we'd also love to know where all of you and our audience are joining us from today. So just drop that in the chat. And you can also use the chat to send us any questions throughout today's session. We will do our best to get to as many of those as we can during the live Q&A in the second part of the show. So as promised, Taylor and Evon have a great presentation planned for you. Taylor, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Marissa, and looking forward to taking you all through our holiday guide today. So just a quick intro outside what Marissa, introduced us as. I'm Taylor Stewart. I'm our Global Head of Retail Media Engagement over here at TripleLift. So what that means is I work really closely with brands, agencies, and DSP partners for all things retail media as it relates to sales strategy, partnership strategy, and go-to-market strategy. Evon?
And I'm Evon. Hi, everyone. I am the Product Research Manager at TripleLift. So I focused on research for all things retail media, first-party data solutions, and emerging product innovation. So my work today involves understanding the evolving landscape of retail media, and I'm excited to share the insights with y'all today.
All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about retail media strategy for the holiday season. Evon is going to take us through the research that she's conducted and the key learnings heading into what promises to be, as always, a busy holiday season for everyone. And we'll make sure we're helping you set up yourselves and your customers for success and make the most out of this short window. But before we get into our holiday playbook, we are going to talk a little bit about creative, supply, and its intersection with data that really makes retail media strategy stronger. And then we'll close today with some key takeaways and Q&A. So first, let's chat about retail media and where we see our place in the space, and more broadly, where we see the value in a coordinated strategy across creative, supply, data, and everyone pulling the levers on the campaigns. Creative in particular is what we do at TripleLift, and we believe this is a key component of our success and our customers' success, regardless of the time of the year, but especially during peak seasons where you have a narrow window to make a big impression amongst, frankly, all the noise. Within programmatic, retail is relatively new to the scene, and retail media has come a long way in a short period of time. Not that long ago, it used to mean end caps in stores, paper coupons that maybe your family brought to the register and had to shuffle through at the end of checkout, or a 15-second spot on local TV. Fast forward to today, and it's become one of the most dynamic and data-powered channels in advertising. Thanks to smarter infrastructure and better formats, we've gone from static promotions to personalized, shoppable experiences across every screen. And the growth is explosive. Retail media is projected to hit over $136 billion globally by 2027. TripleLift is shaping that next phase by working directly with our top retail partners to help brands and agencies activate off-site commerce campaigns that perform better and are easier to launch, thanks to this blend of retail data, creative tech, and smarter delivery. So taking a step back, let's talk about what retail media actually is. At its core, retail media is advertising operated through a retailer. It creates targeted touchpoints with consumers as they browse and shop, offering timely relevance that traditional advertising often lacks. The industry has evolved significantly from its early days of basic sponsored listings to today's more sophisticated ecosystem of creative formats, targeting capabilities, and measurement solutions across on-site, off-site, and in-store environments. This maturation represents a significant advancement in how brands connect with consumers at critical decision points. Navigating retail programmatically really comes down to accessing three key supply sources, which we'll talk about right now. On-site, so direct on a retailer website, so sponsored listings on major retailers like Amazon or Walmart, or sponsored videos. Then off-site, which is extending reach beyond retailer properties with first-party data. So example, reaching customers that are shopping actively on these retailer pages across the open web. And it's really amplifying off-site as the key growth area where we're really going to dive into and focus on today. But of course, there's also in-store, so digital displays, QR codes, screens at registers, or in the aisles. The key players are somewhat obvious. Based on our own shopping behavior, we can kind of guess it's Amazon, Walmart, and Target. But there are emerging platforms like Kroger, Best Buy, and non-traditional players like Uber that we also make sure we're considering in this retail bucket. Within these supply sources, there is a consistent thread: retailer data. Amplifying retailer data to reach existing and potential customers is the goal of retail DSPs and all of their partners. When we look at the current retail media ecosystem, Amazon undeniably holds a dominant market share, accounting for a significant 74% plus. Walmart Connect also commands a notable presence at around 5%, and then Rondell, which is Target's media network, hits in around 2.5%. However, it is vital to recognize the growing segment of emerging platforms, which represent over 18% of the ecosystem. This slice of the pie is dynamic and expanding rapidly. For advertisers, this diversification means more opportunities, but also increased complexity. From an SSP perspective, this highlights the importance of being able to connect with various retail media networks and activate their first-party data across a broad range of publishers in the most engaged way possible. One of our goals and how we envision SSP and tech partners driving success is by helping marketers both navigate this fragmented landscape and providing the tools to efficiently reach these diverse audiences wherever they engage with content through dynamic creative. It's important to remember that each retail partner brings unique data based on their customers. It's our job as marketers to help amplify and drive the strongest results with this data and find net new customers.
So as the holiday season quickly approaches, which we know is a critical window for every brand and advertiser, the big question is, how do we cut through the noise and really connect with all those different shoppers? The key is retailer first-party data. In our research conducted for the Retail Media Holiday Guide, we found that 44% of marketers prioritize first-party data as the number one audience solution for off-site retail media campaigns. Because it's not just about understanding shoppers, it's really about getting the audience data that actually drives real performance. So this is where something like Amazon Audience Extension via TripleLift can come in. When you leverage something like Amazon's strong first-party data, you're not just reaching existing customers, you're finding those net new customers that Taylor mentioned in the previous slide. So when you focus on this high-quality first-party data, it really isn't also just for a window like the holidays, it's overall future-proofing your campaigns so that you have lasting growth in something that is super fast-changing in a retail world. And demand for this also isn't slowing down. There's a clear market opportunity to expand this data beyond direct integrations. When we look to next year, an even higher 59% of marketers show top interest in modeled first-party audience data for supply in retail media innovation. So while retail media first-party data is a big deal, it's crucial to also acknowledge that putting it to good use doesn't come without its trials and tribulations, especially when assessing impact. As an SSP, we see that effective measurement is both retail media's superpower, but often its biggest challenge. We looked into this with our research and found that over half of marketers, specifically 55%, cite limited attribution due to varying attribution windows per retailer as their biggest hurdle in measuring effectiveness. This is followed by the inability to measure closed-loop attribution for strategies spanning multiple channels, especially when trying to understand the holistic impact of ad spend. This, in addition to lack of standards for KPIs across retail networks and lack of transparency in audience insights, aren't just minor inconveniences. These are fundamental roadblocks to understanding true ROI. And it's precisely why 31% of marketers identify audience measurement as their number one area of interest for exploration in the next 12 months. Given the measurement challenges that marketers encounter, it is clear that one size of attribution doesn't fit all. To really understand and optimize your media spend, your attribution model must align with your specific campaign objectives. So when we break this down, what this looks like is for ROAS-focused campaigns, particularly those targeting high-intent searches or sponsored product ads where the consumer is ready to buy, last-click attribution can be very effective because it directly credits that crucial final touch point that drives a conversion, and it's precise for immediate action. Now, when your objective shifts to something like building awareness, driving consideration, or leveraging formats like native, display, and especially CTV, view-based attribution is essential because it better captures the impact of ads that build brand recognition and consideration, even if they aren't the final click. And then when we think about comprehensive full funnel strategies, which are very vital for holiday success, multi-touch attribution provides the most complete picture. It assigns credit across all touch points that influence a conversion, so you get a holistic view of your media's effectiveness that allows you to optimize your spend across the entire shopper journey. Now, with all this said, no matter what your KPI campaign goals are, what your chosen attribution model or retail strategy is, there is a consistent thread that connects everything: creative technology. So high impact dynamic creative breaks through the clutter, it powers stronger engagement, and it builds deeper connections between the brand and the consumer. So especially during the holiday season where attention is at a premium, brilliant creative is a non-negotiable.
So Evon mentioned it before, but why does creative technology matter in retail media? So at TripleLift, we believe that improving the creative experience goes hand in hand with better performance. We also believe that we've created the tools and relationships with publishers and retail DSPs to deliver the best offsite experiences for our shared end customers. As a creative tech SSP, we wanted to focus on how we could lend our expertise to improving the creative experience in the retail media space and address the gaps in the industry. Being, one, full funnel solutions tend to be siloed and limited, and onsite is finite, and offsite supply is typically limited to banners. There is a need for cost-efficient solutions beyond search. Search is becoming more and more competitive, and by essence of that, more expensive. And the CPMs are no longer making it as cost-efficient as it once was. And finally, creative is key because advertisers need new ways to engage with audiences and stand out from their competitors on the open web. And that is no more relevant than during the holiday season.
So let's dive a little deeper into why creative technology is particularly critical for offsite retail media specifically. First, consider this. 82% of marketers emphatically agree that high quality, well-crafted creative is non-negotiable for boosting key performance indicators, KPIs. And if you think about it, it makes sense because your ads visual appeal and its core measure often the very first and sometimes only chance to make an impression, and it's really the hook that draws consumers in. But what does this tell us about the technology component? Our data shows that 77% of marketers report campaigns utilizing creative technology actually achieve significantly higher engagement. And this isn't a coincidence because it directly speaks to the power of dynamic, personalized ads that really resonate because they're smarter and they're just more relevant to the consumer. And now as we gear up for the competitive holiday season, the message is even more clear. 74% of marketers confirm that leveraging holiday-specific creative best practices is a key driver of campaign performance. And this means that your creative strategy can't be static. It needs to be agile, responsive, and constantly adapting to those crucial seasonal nuances so that you can maximize your impact. So creative technology is essential, but the question now is, how do you actually achieve that high impact, personalized creative at scale? And this is where TripleLift's adaptive commerce solutions come in. We work directly with retail media leaders like Amazon and Walmart, combining quality inventory, unique programmatic first formats, and real-time shopper data so that we can turn static ads into shoppable, high-performing moments that feel native and drive results. Our adaptive formats use real-time data, dynamic templating, and creative optimization to boost engagement by 2.85 times, to deliver 1.6 times more attention-grabbing metrics, and increase informativeness by 36% versus standard IAB formats. When you pair this with a standard IAB format like display in an omni-channel campaign, this lifts performance by 15%. So all these stats are great. Ultimately, it's all about using data and creative together so that we can move consumers from awareness to conversion down the funnel so that your brand can stand out and perform across the vast open web.
All right, now that we've shown why creative is such an important part of retail media, let's chat about the holidays and how we can all help brands break through the clutter and deliver a holiday strategy that delivers results when it matters, are easy to activate and impactful, definitely emphasizing the easiness and the impactfulness, and set brands up for success that goes beyond the holiday window. At TripleLift, we believe that the combination of our creative tech and curated supply, when paired alongside retailers and brands' first-party data, whether that be modeled, remarketing, or prospects, it allows us to make the biggest impact within the smallest window. As retail media spending continues to grow, the insights and data from the holiday season allows brands to inform their strategy for the rest of the year, and continue nuancing around creative formats, supply, and data allows brands to stay ahead and drive the greatest value from their retail media investment.
When we surveyed marketers, the planning timeline for holiday offsite retail media campaigns show why now is the critical time to act. You'll see on this chart here, most of the planning activity occurs between May and July, with 63% of marketers initiating their Q4 strategy during this period, because it's not just about getting a head start, it's really about being prepared for the increasing competition and cost environment as we get closer to peak times. You'll notice on this chart, there's a spike in planning activity in June and July with that 23% and 21%. This is when crucial decisions are being made about budget allocation, creative development, and audience targeting. So if you're not planning now, you're already playing catch up. And since Amazon Prime Day was just last week, hoping everyone got to take advantage of that period, the iron is hot. Now is the time to use those learnings, strategy, success you had from Prime Day to further push the momentum and build out your Q4 holiday initiatives and campaigns.
So, as Evon mentioned, we often think of Prime Day as a standalone event, but it really is a proving ground. The data you're collecting right now on messaging, creative performance, and audience response is gold. It should directly inform how you show up during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and beyond. In short, don't wait until October to optimize. You really need to start now. Getting ahead of the holiday season requires planning, locking in budgets for testing before peak seasons begin, approving your creative and supply for testing, and to set a schedule for analysis and optimization alongside your partners. The holiday season really begins in June and July, so we're in that phase of beginning right now, with foundation building off of Prime Day and Walmart deals for days. You want to make sure you're locking in your Q4 strategy and starting to finalize budgets. Audit your past holiday performance, begin creative development for seasonal campaigns, and align with your broader marketing initiatives. Once you hit the August-September time, it's about preparation and commitment. Secure that inventory commitments across key retail media networks. Understand the major retailer tentpole events and promotional calendars leading into and around the holiday shopping, since there's going to be slight nuances there as well, depending on which retailer you're working with. Develop your creative assets that can be customized and set up a measurement framework. Then we get into October and the awareness phase. This is when you want to start launching your upper funnel awareness campaigns, begin testing creative variation to optimize before we get to peak season, and then ramp up for the consideration tactics. Once we hit November, this is very much peak season. We recommend, and I'm sure this is pretty consistent with other partners that you're talking to, that you allocate 40 to 50% of your holiday budget during this critical window, with a heavy focus on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Obviously, we want to make sure we're implementing day parting strategies and monitoring performance daily to adjust the tactics. Once you hit December, that's when we want to start capturing the last minute shoppers. Really focusing on leveraging, the urgency focused messaging, emphasizing shipping deadlines and expedited delivery, and then shift your messaging to gift cards and those quick gifting for those folks who maybe forgot a few people on their shopping list. Then once we go into the new year, you really want to capture that residual value and build on the holiday learnings. Retarget shoppers with post-seasonal sales and really start to build your strategy, heading into the next year, essentially. Now, focus on your creative messaging and formats. This should really be an evolving strategy leading into and throughout the holiday season to find the most effective mix for key customers and where you're seeing engagement. TripleLift helps take the heavy lift out of format testing through our adaptive formats and retail-driven formats that plug directly into product feeds and responsive e-commerce solutions within retail DSPs. Creative messaging should also consider your audience, where you're meeting them in the funnel, both in terms of the message and the format. You want to make sure you're remaining consistent, especially when factoring in full funnel goals from connected TV through to native responsive e-commerce. We've seen considered full funnel messaging really make an impact and deliver up to 5x ROAS and 65% improvements in CPA. Your creative strategy should align to match your consumer mindsets and shopping behaviors, similar to like the strategy we discussed before. Early season in October, education and discovery. Really focus on educational content, highlighting product features and benefits, gift guides and curated collections to spark inspiration. Emphasize your product quality and uniqueness and start to get that plan ahead messaging and market to encourage early shopping. Once we hit mid-season, so November, that urgency and value. So promotional urgency with clear price advantages, limited time offers and exclusive deals, and get that countdown messaging for major shopping events. And also don't forget to factor in those competitive price comparisons and value propositions. During this period too, deal seekers are actively comparing options across multiple retailers, and your creative should emphasize clear value and competitive advantage. So late season December time, convenience and reliability. So shipping deadlines and delivery guarantees, last minute gift messaging for procrastinators, sometimes like myself, but I've been getting better in time, but I used to be a major procrastinator myself. Click and collect and in-store pickup options, and then gift card promotions as shipping deadlines approaches. As shipping windows narrow, convenience and guaranteed delivery become primary purchase drivers.
So when we activate holiday campaigns, what specific creative materials and practices have marketers found most effective for driving holiday success? And our research shows that a significant 74% of marketers find holiday-specific creative best practices to be the key driver of performance because it reinforces the need for bespoke, seasonally relevant creative. A/B testing strategies for holiday messaging are effective and come in second with 67% of marketers. This highlights the importance of continuous optimization. So you just don't set it and forget it. You want to constantly test different headlines, different call to action, and visuals to see what really resonates with your audience. We also found that format recommendations for different campaign objectives are effective for around half of marketers at 47%. So this is where something like an SSP, like TripleLift, adds immense value because there's expertise on which ad formats like native, video, CTV will best serve your specific campaign goals. And finally, successful holiday campaigns demand meticulous planning. So understanding creative production timeline recommendations and implementing creative refresh cadences throughout the season are really effective tools as well. Now, the takeaway here is successful holiday campaigns aren't just about good creative. They're about strategically developed, continuously tested, and dynamically refreshed creative materials that are used in tandem in a formula that best reaches your specific objectives.
So it's important to make sure that you're using the right formats to deliver the correct message. We know that updating creatives can be a lift, but as Evon showed you earlier, the outcome is worth it. TripleLift solutions allow you to do so effortlessly. One-touch or partner-managed solutions on native and video, enhanced CTV messaging that can drive awareness and engagement, adaptive solutions that change based on pricing, reviews, availability, and then obviously partnering with AI-enhanced creatives. So now that you have the creative planned, it's important to start planning messaging and audiences across the holiday campaigns. Smart planning and the right partners can help streamline the approach and help you maximize your campaigns. Early holiday targeting is when you want to focus your messaging on organized early adopters and planners. During this period, you also want to start identifying top performing audiences and supply opportunities where your messaging resonates the most. Once we get into peak season, we start to hit the deal seekers and the last minute buyers. The messaging here will be to focus on the sales, amplifying reach, maintaining your efficiencies, and plugging into the highest engaging creatives to improve your message, especially as you're looking to reach those shoppers who are maybe scrambling for gifts. Leveraging your partners is key to be successful. One thing we do for our partners is take the lift out of the creative approach and provide guidance via our partner teams, whether it be for creative optimization, creative development, or even supply and strategy.
So now that you know who you're reaching, here's how you can best implement audience targeting strategies to reach them. And this is all found in our Retail Media Holiday Guide. For the most prevalent strategy implemented by 77% of marketers, it's the seasonal shopper segmentation targeting early, late, and last minute buyers, such as myself and Taylor, procrastinators, but we're working on it. This aligns perfectly with the evolving shopper mindsets that we discussed earlier. 70% of marketers also employ gift purchaser versus self-purchaser targeting approaches. And this is distinct for holiday because then you can tailor messages for someone buying for others versus spoiling themselves with gifts. Then is sequential targeting approaches throughout the season. And this is used by roughly 68% of marketers. So this means that advertisers are building a narrative over time and they're really guiding the shoppers throughout the entire journey instead of just at the conversion point. We also see strong adoption of category-specific audience strategies and conquest and retention strategies, both at 43% usage during competitive periods. When you work with the SSP like TripleLift, that'll allow you to extend your reach to these valuable audience segments at scale so that your holiday message is delivered to the right person at the right time so you can maximize that impact and efficiency.
Now, navigating peak cost. This is something that is a bit of a passion project for me as someone who was hands-on keyboard for several years when it came to managing campaigns. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty, but we do want to give you a brief, tactical hands-on keyboard approach that can work throughout the peak season. So peak season is where you're going to see significant increases in CPMs, especially on O&O. This is where your offsite strategy becomes even more important for both reach and maintaining efficient costs across your whole campaign. So to get ready for peak season, we recommend that you prepare for higher cost, utilize frequency capping and day parting, maybe loosen up a little bit on the frequency capping too, which I know is tough at times. And then consider expanding beyond O&O, so beyond Walmart and Amazon O&O, and really look to reach your customers wherever they're engaging online throughout their shopper journey, their individual shopper journey. So obviously Q4 holiday season is, the biggest time of the year. But these approaches can be leveraged throughout the calendar for high traffic events and tentpoles. Just to prepare you, some quick adjustments and approaches will be necessary based on the event and timing, such as Prime Day, where we see a 2-week lead-in, being the best approach, and then obviously the week of to actually maximize your results during an event like Prime Day. As we think about broader holiday strategy, though, this is our recommended approach as we approach the holiday season. As mentioned before, there can be, slight structuring and shortening for smaller and shorter tentpole events like a Prime Day, but it really comes down to lead in, outline your audience approach, hone in your creative messaging and supply, and start to build those remarketing pools. Early peak, focus on where you find performance with audiences, messaging, and supply strategy. And in the final month, maximize your reach for that last touch point. Focus on efficiencies and performance and getting those users to convert. We want to leave you with some key takeaways too as you get ready to start planning for your holiday season. The biggest thing, start planning and testing now across creative, supply, and audience targeting. Start to plan your audience targeting across your retail partners and start to align your first-party data. Make sure that you're investing in creative formats and starting to test those across all channels. Get those approvals that you need from your clients or your brands on those creative formats as well. We know that it can be really difficult to get approvals mid-season, so it's best to do that as early as possible. Set your budgets and flighting to align to the key time periods and account for higher costs during peak season. And of course, leverage your partners like TripleLift. All right, Marissa, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
All right. Thanks, Taylor. And thanks, Evon. Such great information throughout this entire last 30 minutes. But I think one of the things I was actually most surprised to learn was that both of you are last-minute shoppers. So I guess it's a good thing we're talking about this now almost 6 months before the holidays so we can all really start to think about it. I'd love to know from our audience, are you a last minute shopper or do you do things in advance? Put it in the chat for us. We'd love to hear from you and keep those questions coming. So let me give another thank you both to Taylor and Evon for such great content and really for all of that great information, setting us up for the holiday season with really the knowledge of all of the different elements that are going to drive real performance. So we have, Taylor and Evon, a handful of questions that have come in from our audience. Are you ready to hear some of those?
Let's hear them.
All right, I'm going to take that as a yes. All right, so Taylor, the first one is for you. What are the first steps that brands should take to build a stronger test and learn framework for retail media campaigns during the holiday season?
So I know I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I want to make sure I'm reiterating it again, since we hear it constantly. We're talking to customers, but brands should really start planning creative and creative formats now. We know that approvals are going to take some time. We know that leading into peak season, it's going to be a massive challenge to get folks to pay attention to an approval for a creative and to bring something new to a plan. So really engage today, if you can, as soon as you possibly can on these like kind of net new programs. Make sure you're leveraging your DSP and SSP partners, especially for audience targeting. As I mentioned before, each retail DSP has their own unique audience and they're the experts in it. Make sure you're talking to them, pulling your reporting, understanding where there's like maybe like a little pocket of efficiency that's really going to help you amplify your audience approach and stand out from your competitors.
All right, well, thank you for that. So our next viewer has a question about just some different challenges that you see. And I imagine you see some really great creative, and I think you probably see some that has some room for improvement. You both spoke to creative during the presentation today. Taylor, what are the biggest mistakes that you see advertisers make with creative in retail media, and how can they avoid them to unlock higher performance?
So I think the biggest mistake, this is, outside of just like what's in the creative, but the biggest mistake is not expanding outside of your traditional display or mixing up your creative mix. Definitely don't be afraid to like just go out there and try something different. Like as long as it makes sense within the confines of your campaign and your customer. But outside of that, to be successful, you want to make sure you're doing two things. One is create synergy between your audiences and the messaging, even at the macro level. So think like sales messaging and deal seekers. Make sure that your lifestyle messaging aligns to what you're actually targeting and who you're trying to reach. The other piece is to remain consistent with your strategies and messaging throughout the funnel. So make sure you're doing that to connect the dots between upper and lower funnel, because that's, as we mentioned before, we see a ton of success on full funnel campaigns. And the one consistent thing amongst all those campaigns, they had continual like messaging from the top to the bottom and converted.
All right, that's interesting. Yeah, I remember one of the points that that you made when you were talking about creative was I think if it was running for a few months, don't be afraid to just mix it up with the message and try something else within that duration of that campaign. So thank you for sharing all of those good points again on what folks should really be focused on to achieve that success. Evon, how can brands quickly identify and scale their top performing audience segments before key shopping dates like Black Friday and Cyber Monday?
Oh, I love this. This gets right to the heart of retail success. So you'll not only need to know who bought last year, but you'll also want to anticipate who's ready to buy now and into the remaining season after. So I would recommend leveraging a combination of audience segmentation capabilities so that you can activate audiences across diverse inventory and so you can scale reach the best. I think number one, the quickest path to identifying top segments is really activating your own first party data like loyalty programs or website interactions, purchase history, all of that. And that means you can use your proprietary customer insights to quickly translate into actionable targeting lists for programmatic campaigns so that you can bypass a traditional manual process.
Okay, well, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
One last one here. No worries. I also want to just say, to expand your reach beyond existing customers, it's important to also build lookalike audiences based on your identified high value segments. So they're platforms that can be used to increase like privacy forward methods like contextual targeting, et cetera. And at TripleLift, we use publisher first-party data and AI to identify users across various sites. So just also wanted to point that out.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I also wanted to let both of you know that the question I put out there for our audience on if they're last-minute shoppers or not, I want to give a shout-out to the person who does all of their shopping on Christmas Eve. That would be really stressful for me, but if that's working for you, I applaud you for that. So just want to give a shout-out to one of our viewers for that. Evon and Taylor, are you both Christmas Eve shoppers? How last-minute are you?
During my college years, my dad would explicitly wait for me to come home for break to get in the car, drive to the mall, and shop for my mom. So that
Okay.
was, I guess, like a weekend before Christmas or so. But now in my adult life, I try to get done before mid-December.
Okay.
I won't lie, I've definitely bought on Christmas Day. So
You're
I'm
supposed
there
to
with you,
find
whoever
something
put
that's
that.
open on Christmas Day.
True.
That's funny. I try to do it in advance. I think my problem is I never know what to get anybody. So it ends up procrastinating until later and later because I almost have, I'm not sure what to do. All right, Evon, our next question is for you. How can marketers measure the true impact of retail media campaigns beyond standard metrics, especially when testing new creative approaches?
I like that question. I would say standard metrics are still important. They're a fundamental standard to portray retail media value. We have 3 in 4 marketers saying that ROAS is a primary KPI. But if you're innovating with a new creative, you really want to understand how much of that sale actually happened because of the ad, and then what specific elements drove that incremental impact. So I think I would start with creative testing. So that's A/B testing, geo experimentation. It's running that creative in test and control markets and really understanding the landscape there. And then moving into the holy grail of direct sales impact. So that's incrementality, understanding who was new to brand, how much of the campaign drove new to brand customers. For example, TripleLift ran a campaign with our creative technology paired Stackline's e-commerce intelligence, and we saw that uptick of over 75% of new customer product sales. So that's really showing bottom line efficacy and incrementality, and it's things like basket size, repeat purchasers, etc. And then you want to color that out with the holistic predictive measurement of brand lift studies or marketing mix modeling and path to purchase signals. So I really want to just like reiterate, it's all about agile creative testing because the season's super dynamic and you want to quickly optimize and then figure out what your specific bottom line incrementality KPI is so that you can have a clear story when you have all these measurement points.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing in that data point. That's really interesting to hear what you're seeing at TripleLift. All right. We have time for one more question. Taylor, if you had to share just one piece of advice for winning with retail media this holiday season, what is it? What would it be?
Honestly, it's to be brave and be open to testing and optimizing. I would say in one of my favorite work experiences, I actually used to make creatives at a job, and we used to do constant creative iteration and testing. And it didn't just excite me as someone who likes to do art, but it was also like really good learning experience. We learned that as we had a lot of different messages in market and tested out new ways of presenting you know a brand that is very well known, it resonated significantly better, and with specific audiences in particular. So I always just say, like, be bold, be open, and definitely work with your partners, understand like what those little pockets of opportunity look like. Because if you're finding a small pocket of opportunity and amplifying it, there's a really good chance that you're maybe one of the few brands or marketers doing so, and it gives you a really unique opportunity to like make a big impact. I think, Evon, anything that you want to add?
Everything that you mentioned, but also just embracing like a full funnel omni-channel retail media strategy. I know you mentioned that earlier, and I feel like a broken record too, but I really see the impact there from a numbers perspective. So making sure you leverage diverse ad formats and reach the shopper wherever they are in their journey.
All right, so be bold and embrace the full funnel. So I think those are great takeaways to wrap up the Q&A with. Evon and Taylor, thank you both again for such great content today, and of course, for answering all of those questions from our audience. So appreciate the two of you both being here today.
Yeah, thank you, Marissa, and thanks, eMarketer, for having us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, so just before we wrap up, don't go anywhere. I'm just going to take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's media channels. Don't miss eMarketer's next summit on September 9th in New York City, a live future-focused event where top marketers, brand leaders, and eMarketer analysts share the insights you need to navigate the next 5 years of marketing and advertising. Secure your spot, register for more webinars like this one, and subscribe to our newsletters, all at eMarketer.com. eMarketer's podcast also got a glow up, a new look, the same great insights. So catch Behind the Numbers, Reimagining Retail, and the Banking and Payment Show on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And finally, keep an eye on your email for the link to today's playback. And of course, feel free to contact us if you have any additional questions. Thank you all for your time. And thanks again to Evon, Taylor, and the team at TripleLift. And of course, the eMarketer studio team behind the scenes for making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.